Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our last session of our personal branding series. In the last few weeks, I would say about the last 4 to 6 weeks, we've been auditing your personal brand. We then went to either rebranding your brand or just fully creating a brand new one. And today, we will be discussing the ins and outs of how to market yourself on LinkedIn, which if you would ask Alex, she'll probably tell you that this is my favorite part of the entire series.
Her favorite thing in the world.
My name is Sohaili Ramon, and I am the marketing director for Alpha. And I have a decade worth of experience across advertising, marketing, and communications, both in agency and now in-house. And I'll pass it on to Alex.
And I'm Alex Larson. I am the senior designer at Alpha, and I have 15 plus years of doing design in some form or another, from freelance to in-house to corporate. I've done a little bit of everything. So
You sure have.
Welcome to our last and final session.
So to kick us off, we are actually going to talk about the introduction to your professional digital landscape, which on LinkedIn, that is your headline. And so your headline really is, again, it is the introduction statement to everyone that is on LinkedIn. So typically, how you will see this is that most people describe what they do. That could be your role, the service that you provide, the expertise that you bring, who you do it for. So it could be your target audience or your industry, your sector, and then why should it matter to them? How does it benefit your audience or the person that's coming to your profile to learn more? I think one of the most important parts of marketing yourself on LinkedIn is that this is a profile that you are setting up based on your personal brand. But as we've been discussing across all of our 3 sessions, is that your personal brand, though it is founded on who you are, it is for other people to consume. And so your LinkedIn profile is no different, right? Your headline has to be clear, has to be short, has to be concise, for the people who are consuming it. So we're actually going to go through a couple of examples of what this may look like. And certainly some are examples that you have already are seen on LinkedIn. So there are about 4 of the most common kind of templates on headlines. So it could be a value proposition, the overall headline really focusing on the value that you provide. It could be through your consultancy role or company. It could be through your role in your company. Making sure that the entire headline is really focused on the value proposition of your personal brand. If your personal brand is really more focused around problem solving, then creating or writing a headline that is really focused on how do you solve that problem for your audience will be best for you. If you have 20, 30 years of expertise, and that is really where your value proposition lies, then perhaps writing a headline that really hones in on what are your credentials, your past experience, any overall publications or awards that you may win will be the differentiator for your headline. And then last but definitely not least is the results oriented. If you know that your personal brand is really focused on driving results, on achievements, on providing impact in whichever way in your experience, then writing a headline that's really centered around the impact that you provide would be best. Again, these are just 4 of the most common templates that you may see. However, we now have very different tools that you can leverage. You can leverage even just looking through the platform to see how people talk about themselves just by seeing the headline will give you a lot of insight as to what feels very authentic to you, right? Because what we've talked about the entire time is making sure that your digital footprint is just the same, or it's just a different version of yourself than what it is to interact with you in person. So we're actually going to talk through a couple of what those examples may look like. So this is the first one, is marketing director. This is my role. My my value proposition is brand strategy expert focused on developing millennial and Gen Z Latino voices. That is who I do it for. And then what I do is I share multicultural marketing insights on LinkedIn. Some of these other examples are really focused on what I just went through, right? So some are focused on results, some are focused on the overall impact, so on and so forth. So overall, you want to make sure that you use words, the keywords that are relatable to your job, to your industry, to your business, and to your skills, so that when people are searching on the platform for either insights or expertise, that you are using the words that they most likely are using in order to find you.
And keep it short and sweet. Try to
Absolutely.
keep it under 220 characters. We want it, you don't need to write a book in your headline.
Mm-hmm.
Which takes us to the other visual part of your of your LinkedIn profile, which is your profile picture. So I know we all dread taking headshots, or maybe that's just me. I don't like taking them, but there are some key points that you want to think about when you're picking your headshot of ones you already potentially have, and or going to go take a professional headshot for your LinkedIn. One is you want really great lighting. If you're doing it professionally, you don't have to worry about it as much because the photographer should be taking care of that for you. But if you're taking it at home or using something you might already have, make sure that you're well lit. You don't want to look washed out. You don't want to look too far into the shadows. You want to make sure that your actual face and what you really look like is what is in your profile picture. The other thing is make sure your face takes up at least 50% of the frame. You want your face to be the highlight of that profile picture. It doesn't need to be a body shot or something that's taken from far away from like the waist up, where most of the picture is you're not seeing your actual face. You're seeing mostly like your full physical form, which is great for a profile piece on a publication or on a larger format image. Your profile picture is so small. Having just your face be the most visible part, that is the key component of who you are, is your personal, like actual visage. So you want to make sure that's what people see. Follow up to that is avoiding overwhelming backgrounds. We all remember school pictures where they had the background that came up on the little screen of just kind of like modeled whatever color your school picked. And there was always that kid who could like afford or wanted to have this special background of like the jungle. You want to be the one who doesn't do that on your profile picture. You don't need the picture background having all of the crazy elements in the back. You want you to be the focus, not your background. So if you do have a picture that has a background, or there's a picture of yourself that you truly love and thinks embodies you, your brand, and just who you are as a person, but the background is just a little bit off, you can always go into Canva and remove the background. Or if you have Photoshop or any other sort of image retoucher system, you can remove the background and put a solid background. If it's just a solid color, you can replace it with something different. There's some options for you if the picture of yourself is truly one that you love. And use a high resolution image. Use one that's going to be crisp and clear, not one that's going to pixelate if someone tries to like click on it or they zoom in. You want it to be something that you can still very clearly see who you are and what you look like without it being kind of wonky or like very pixelated on the edges. It's not an 8-bit video game. There shouldn't be like geometric edges to your face. It should be a crisp photo. And one thing to consider as well as you're doing this is that your photo on LinkedIn also connects and overlaps with your LinkedIn header. So as you are choosing your photo or picking your photo, make sure that your header and your photo connect and work well together. So in this example are both mine and Zuhaili's. You can see with Zuhaili's that her LinkedIn header is very clean, very crisp. And her profile picture, she is wearing a lovely hunter green shirt, which is one of her favorite colors. And in her banner, she picks up on that same hunter green, which highlights her website URL. So she connects both of those two things. In mine, you can very clearly see that the louder part of my profile picture header cover image block, my picture is by far more busy in the sense of I have a background, I'm wearing a very brightly colored blazer. But because my profile cover image doesn't have a background color, it doesn't really clash with anything that's going on. It's not competing against anything truly. So there's a little bit of wiggle room that you have to play around with. Just be mindful that you don't want to create your brand being all bright pinks and bright yellows and bright reds, and then your profile picture you're using an orange background or you're wearing an orange blazer that clashes very, very harshly with those pinks and reds. You want to make sure that these kind of work in harmony. They don't have to be exactly matchy but they should at least be harmonious in the sense that it should flow together and make a complete picture versus like, oh, we picked this from there and that from there and kind of hodgepodged it together into something. You want it to flow together. So that's profile pictures. Which takes us to the About You section.
Absolutely. Talking about flow, I think one of the most important things that I've learned while really being intentional about how I show up and how my personal brand shows up on LinkedIn is how important flow, consistency, and writing is on the platform. So it's actually one of the social media platforms where video is just about picking up right now. Posts are great, pictures, yes, but really majority of your personal brand is showing up about it's showing up about who you are, and how you show up is through writing that story. So before we talk about what the About You section is, let's first talk about what the About You section is not. First of all, the About You section is not just a replica of your experience section. It is not your life story. Please don't tell me where you were born. There's a time and place. This is not it. Don't brag about your achievements. There's already a section for that on your profile. And again, don't just give me a summary of where you've worked. There's a section for that as well. So you want to make sure that your About section, though it is about you, it needs to focus about other people. What do you bring to your audience? What do you bring to your community on LinkedIn? As every social media platform that we have currently in 2024, we curate these digital footprints to make sure that we are telling a story to the people that are following us. And LinkedIn is no different. The only difference is that LinkedIn is the best place for you to put your best foot forward, either for a future employer, if you are looking for mentors, coaches, if you have a business and you're trying to lead, if you're trying to generate leads for your business, this is most likely the first place before they even reach your website that they're going to come and learn about you. They're going to come and learn about why should they come to you other than everybody else in the landscape. For whichever work, whichever service, whichever product that you are providing. And that is what the About section is for. So let me actually break down about what are the different components that you need to think about when writing this About You section. So let's first start with the hook. And I know the hook sounds like something that we talked about in 5th grade, which funny enough, it was. So the hook is a attention grabbing statement. It could be either provocative, it could be a compelling question, it could be a surprising fact about your industry, about your work. Essentially, it could also be, or should be, it is the statement that you are placing the reader in your story, right? Like, put me in that story about who you are. Make me feel like I am there from the moment that I read that first statement. And so being able to write a really good hook, not just in your About sections, but overall in your content and anything that you push on your LinkedIn. And that is something we're going to talk about in a little bit moving forward. But being able to write a very compelling hook statement is what's going to set you apart and set your story apart from everybody else on the platform. So that is the first step, writing a hook, a good hook for your About You section. Second is the pain points and benefits. So throughout this series, we've really been talking about how do you solve a problem? What is your approach? What is your secret sauce? So all of those answers that you've gathered between session 1 and session 2 of this series, this is where you're actually going to write about, and you're going to describe what is that problem that you are solving and how are you solving it, right? In the last session, we talked a lot about really tapping into the emotions that these 10 of problems or pain points tend to evoke on your target audience. This is where you actually write them down. This is where you write down, this is the problem that I fixed. This is my approach to it. This is my secret sauce. And this is how I solve this issue. So you're really making it clear to your target audience. These are the pain points that you are most likely experiencing. And then these are the benefits of working with me if you decide that I'm the best person for you. Now, you need to establish your credibility, right? Remember, I said that it is the entire session or entire section is not about you bragging about your achievements, but you do need to kind of show this is what I've done before that can help you establish credibility with your target audience. It's a section of your about section, but it's not the entire component, which is the main difference. And this is really what's going to help you establish your overall authority. So you can share the years of experience. You can have testimonials from past clients. You can really figure out multiple ways for you to say, this is the value that I bring to the work if you were to work with me in whatever capacity. And then last, but definitely not least, and I think this is one of the things that most people leave out of their About You section is, give me a call to action. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to, are we supposed to connect? Is there a meeting that I can schedule with you? Do you want me to send you a DM? So one of the things that I will definitely be saying throughout this entire session today is that we cannot forget that LinkedIn is a networking platform. And so for you to network on the platform, you need to tell people what is it that you're seeking from them? What is it that you want from them to do? And so leaving that part out of your About You section can be the biggest differentiator between you either growing your connections, growing your followers, growing your overall expertise on the platform, because you're not telling your audience exactly what to do.
Which takes us to the next section in your LinkedIn profile, which is the featured section. So this, thinking of your personal brand and thinking of what you want to showcase, this is, you kind of need to have you need to think about this a little bit. So you want to showcase something to your audience, whoever's looking at your profile, that is going to help them see how you can further their goals and how you can further your own goals. You want to make sure that what you're showcasing is helpful to both you and to whoever is looking at your profile. So if you don't know what you want to put in your feature section, we have a couple of ideas for you, but more is definitely less. So stay in the one or two amounts in your feature section. Don't go crazy. But here are some examples. So you can put your website or your portfolio. If you work in a creative industry like me, where you're a designer, your portfolio has to be in your featured section. It's almost a requirement that your people who are trying to hire you or want to see your body of work, they need to be able to find it very quickly. If you are a writer or you do a lot of blog posts, linking to your latest blog. If you are someone who does a lot of speaking engagements, having your most recent podcast interview or a link to places you've spoken before or videos of places where you've spoken before. You can have a list of your services that you offer. You can have included in that. You can even have pricing if that's something you want to include. If you have great case studies and testimonials where people have said truly amazing things about you, definitely link them in your feature section. That's something that people are going to look for, like reviews of your services. And if you're someone who does a lot of scheduling or wants to have calendar one-on-ones or meetings and things like that, you can have links to that as well. It's like schedule your meeting here or reach out for to schedule your meeting kind of call to action as well.
Yeah.
Be aware that some of these things there are some things that are like industry standard. Like I said before, if you're a designer or you work in a creative space, having your portfolio as part of your featured section or very high up on your LinkedIn profile or social media profile is kind of almost required because it is something is so often used. So keep that in mind, that if there is something in your specific industry, it will be very keep in mind that if there's something specific in your industry that is almost required to have on hand at all times and readily available to anyone who is looking to hire you or work with you, if that's something that exists in your industry, make sure it's here. Make sure you include it. Make sure it's easy to find and very clearly labeled.
And I would say that this is also one of the real estates of your profile that most people don't use, right? It's very is underutilized because of the fact that most people go on to create a LinkedIn profile with only the idea that LinkedIn is only helpful for finding your next job, which in 2024 is really far away from the truth. LinkedIn nowadays, and having your personal brand be on LinkedIn and being intentional about it, this is the thing. Your personal brand is the thing that is setting people apart, right? A lot of employers now are tapping into the folks within their company that are speaking about the work that they do, that they're highlighting, that they're amplifying the work that the company does. But they're doing it in interesting and just refreshing ways. And so I say this to say that one of the most important parts that you definitely want to be very conscious of is, why am I creating a profile on LinkedIn? Or if I am revisiting my profile, what are the edits that I want to make and why? Having a goal for your personal brand on LinkedIn or on any platform for that say, it's extremely important because it's going to guide the different types of call to actions that you're going to want to highlight in these different real estates within your profile.
Which takes us to content strategy, Zuhaili's favorite thing in the whole world.
Absolutely. And that means it's honestly probably because I think the moment people hear content strategy, they automatically think content creator. And you do not need to be a content creator to have a content strategy. Actually, if you're a really busy student or an extremely busy executive, having a very simple and simple content strategy and schedule is going to keep your personal brand clear, concise, and effective, which
And
is why, yes, absolutely. So I definitely taken the time to dismantle that myth that it needs to be very overcomplicated or that it's only reserved for content creators. Because on a platform such as LinkedIn, remember, writing is the number one tool that connects people with you on LinkedIn, which is a big differentiator from all of the other social media platforms. So having a content strategy that leverages your strengths that you're going to be amplifying through your writing um, is going to help you set yourself apart from everybody else. And so, just to highlight a couple of the different content types on the platform, articles are typically something that the platform is pushing out very, very much, meaning even if you were to write one article a month, I typically write one, maybe two if I'm feeling very excited about the topic. But typically, one article a month is more than enough to get additional impressions, additional new people to come onto your platform, learn more about you. And what you can focus it on is share in-depth insights about your industry, or if you're already reading articles or listening to podcasts, repurpose that content and share that on LinkedIn, share the link. um any thought leadership pieces that you're coming across, or write your own, right? Essentially, these articles should be informative, should be actionable, and should showcase your expertise, but should also show that you are a resource to your community, to your audience. We all know what it is to work in a 9 to 5 or in a very busy industry where things tend to move very quickly. So most people are going to follow you or are going to follow your content. They're going to engage with you on LinkedIn if they see that you make them learning on the platform much easier, or more educating, or a little bit more interesting to read, right? I think when I first got on LinkedIn, probably about 15 years ago, um the content there was very different, right? It was for a very specific type of person. I think nowadays, where I'm seeing more younger professionals jumping on, telling us about their experience, being I think a lot of something that tends to turn people off about the platform is that they hear that it's a professional platform. And so we all have um a very different idea of what professionalism looks like. And I think a lot of the times those type of stereotypes keeps people away from being their authentic selves on the platform. But it is that authenticity that typically gets people a bigger following. It gets more
It gets people
engagement.
engaged.
Correct. So, all of that to say that I definitely do encourage you all to really explore, just start sharing your perspective, your opinion on LinkedIn, and articles is a great forum to do that. Another great way, and it's a lot easier, a lower lift, is post. You can share updates, industry news, your personal professional journeys, right? We all love a good heartfelt story. But again, as I just mentioned, if you just listened to a podcast and you caught a couple of really great nuggets, share those nuggets, share the link. And now you're bringing even more amplification around the things that call your attention. And also you are amplifying another resource that someone else in your community may not be aware of. And then polls and surveys. So polls is actually something that a lot of people on the platform don't use, but it is something that the platform itself definitely does push to your community. So engage by asking questions, by sharing surveys. Essentially, it's such a quick way for your audience to interact with your profile. But you will be amazed by how many people do interact with it because um, it's
User
such
friendly.
right, absolutely. It's such a quick interaction that they can have with you. So overall, content themes, as we've mentioned, industry insights. So if you are already reading newsletters, listening to podcasts, reading books, tell us the industry trends, tell us innovations, best practices that you're learning from these different mediums. Um, Most of us don't stop to try to learn everything that's happening because then things are moving very, very quickly. So if you just write a post or any type of content on the platform, you already doing a lot more than most of us. Um, Obviously, we can't forget this one, professional development. So we are all on the platform trying to develop ourselves. But besides the I just got a job or I just got promoted post, the other types of posts that I've definitely see doing very well are posts that people share on providing tips, providing resources, advice for career growth, skill development, and how to build your personal brand and show up on LinkedIn. These are all things that people are looking for, especially now in the landscape where people are losing their jobs, that finding a new job is taking a minimum of a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
People are seeking tips and best practices on how they can differentiate themselves. How can they build a personal brand? How can they show up on LinkedIn? How can they leverage LinkedIn to then find their next opportunity? These are all things that people are searching for. And there are so much information on other platforms, but ironically enough, it's not on LinkedIn. So even sharing a little bit more about your own personal experience in your industry, in your role, again, is already going to be able to help you build a community of folks that is looking for the same type of information.
And it doesn't need to be a super heavy lift, because I can speak from experience that I have people in my network who did a professional development post that didn't really give them any tips. It was more of a review of a certification they took, where they said, this certification was amazing. Like, I learned so much. It was so helpful to me. I definitely recommend doing it, versus just posting online, I got my certification. So they took that extra half a second to just be like, I actually got something so important from this. Here was a little bit, I definitely recommend doing it, was more useful to me as someone who also was considering taking that same certification, of being going, oh, okay, so instead of doing it from company A, I'm going to do it from this company B, because this person that I know just did it from this company and got so much from it. So
Right.
it can be something as simple as just extending your congratulatory post of I did XYZ into something a little bit more review or explanatory
Absolutely.
to your audience.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great call out, because another misconception that people have about LinkedIn is the fact that you have to show up and be your most professional or your most perfect self, right? Which again is another thing that has made or has turned away a lot of people from sharing their struggles on the platform. However, I am now seeing that people who are honest about perhaps maybe not the best parts of their job, challenges that they're facing, they're asking for advice. Those are the types of content that really garners conversations, which is actually, if I can give you just probably the biggest takeaway from this presentation is, as I mentioned earlier, LinkedIn is a platform to network. And one of the main ways that people do network, and I have personally been networking on the platform this year, is through conversations. I am now spending, and I can't recommend enough most people to do, is to at least spend an hour, I would say 30 to 45 minutes a day, just you leaving comments on other people's posts and not expecting anything of it, right? In the midst of that, I have been invited for cafecitos. I have met new people in my network, people that I have actually never met in my life that are now part of my network. I have gathered insights, resources, tools, like people sharing tools with me that I've never met, because of the fact that they see me interacting with their content on a daily basis, genuinely, right? And so, being able to leverage the platform for what it's literally created for, which is to network. Commenting is the best way to, if you're looking to grow your followers, comment. If you're looking to engage or meet new people within the platform, comment on other posts, because this is also the way that the platform pushes out your profile to people who may not be following you, right? So again, all of these things really do work together. Um, and they definitely do build upon each other. So that actually brings me to the third content type, which is success stories. So if you are a little bit more like consultancy, graphic design, anything that you can showcase client success stories or case studies, overall project highlights, which I'm sure that in any role we all have, that is a great way to also showcase your expertise, showcase your skills. And it's a way for not just future employers, but people within your network on the platform learn more about what you do, who you do it for, and how you do it. Um, and then definitely last but not least is throughout overall these content types, the content themes, what you're going to be showcasing is your thought leadership. So positioning yourself as a thought leader by sharing original perspective. As I mentioned just now, a lot of people are not sharing the true challenges that they face. As you grow and develop in your career, what are some insights that you can share with your network? These are all things that are going to really position you as someone who, it's building their own professional brand, but that you can also be a resource for others. And on the platforms such as LinkedIn, that is what we're going there for. We're all there for professional development and growth. And if you position yourself and your personal brand as someone who can provide value for others, you will definitely find a lot of success.
That's yes. And before we move on, talking about content, I know that for a lot of people, generating content ideas can be a struggle. And there are now apps and AI that can kind of help you. And we did have someone ask if chat GPT, of like what our thoughts on. I can share my personal thoughts on it, which is if you're going to use AI, it should be used as a tool and not necessarily as the answer. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are using it, review it, make changes, edit it to make it more your voice versus chat
Absolutely. Yeah.
GPT's AI voice.
Right.
Make sure that make sure A, that what you're promoting is correct, and B, make sure it actually fits with your personal brand as well. So yes, it's a great resource. I just wouldn't necessarily use it as the be all end all final product of content. Like it should not be copy and paste directly. There should be some time to sit with it. There should be some time to make edits and add your own personal thoughts, feelings, flair to whatever is produced.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I think, and I've always said this, is that Chat GPT is the first draft to everything, right? And so, um, once you get that first draft, definitely go back and revise, edit multiple times to make sure that it does align with your personal brand. I personally do leverage the platform. However, this is why we've really spent a lot of time on session 1 and session 2, specifically session 2, where we really talk about what is your value proposition, who is your target audience, what is your voice, because those are actually the pieces of information that I give to Chat GPT when considering creating content creation. I'm not just saying, I want you to think like a marketing director and create a content calendar for mental health awareness, right? Like I am actually going in and saying, this is the voice, this is the target audience, this is the value proposition, this is how many times I want to post, this is how long I want the post to be. So the prompt is actually a lot more detailed to exactly what is it that I'm looking for, to make sure that it is at least that first draft that is going to be provided to me is going to be aligned with how I want to show up to the platform. So again, it is a tool that I leverage, but I'm still very intentional about the information that I feed it to make sure that it aligns with my personal brand. But that was a great question.
So that brings us to the end of our session. Gracias, obrigada for joining us. And if you need, here is the URL and QR code to download the personal branding workbook that we used in sessions 1 and 2. So we'll leave it up. And if we have any questions, we'll give it a couple seconds. Hopefully you guys all got as much from Zuhaili's marketing presentation as I did, because this is so wildly outside my field of ability to do, like comfortably. I can design a logo in like easily, would happily design a logo. But if you told me that I needed to go market myself on LinkedIn, I would like go hide, because it is just so outside my comfort zone. So having her break it down and like explain it makes me feel so much better. So hopefully that you guys all felt the same way.
Beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us all. This is our first time ever doing a personal branding series, 3 parts, and we loved every single moment of it. We don't have any questions, but again, if there are any other questions after you see this live, our LinkedIn is also on within the resource, the personal branding workbook, and we'll be happy to answer any questions or concerns there.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.